Hey everybody, Mike here, and welcome to the Subspace Parlor. And I am joined by Mr. Yahel, lifelong Star Trek fan.
Yeah, I'm excited. Today we're going to talk about Balance of Terror. We did a similar discussion for City on the Edge of Forever, and it went pretty well. And I think it was kind of your idea to...
Yeah, just because some of these episodes, there's just so much to unpack. And especially, I think, in our initial reaction with this, we also weren't reading fan comments during our discussion. In retrospect, and I will say, I've already changed my rating on this. Like, whatever I said, and I don't remember if I said maybe 4 to 4.5. This, to me, is a clear 5.
Yeah.
And we're going to discuss why. It'll definitely come out in some of the comments and thoughts we have. And observations. It is playing in the background, so if you kind of see us look to the side, that's the reason. And
yeah, and you've watched this several times since. This man has a large page of notes here. I've got mine on my phone, but yeah, let's get into it, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, this was actually an episode that I remember pretty vividly. I think because it was one of the early ones that really, I think, impacted me watching all these for the very first time.
A bit of a submarine battle in space, kind of a plot. And it explores so much. I mean, we get to see a little bit of Kirk dealing with bigotry on the bridge.
Leave any bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for it on the bridge. Do I make myself clear?
You do, sir.
We get to see a bit of a romance story. But the real story for me is between Kirk and this Romulan commander.
It's a strong sub-story, Kirk and Styles. Styles kind of has things with both Spock and Kirk. Mm-hmm. So let's just say that's, 3 kind of main personalities. Kirk and the Romulan commander, Kirk and Styles and Spock. And they flesh them out really well. In 50 minutes, there's a lot going on. And you might notice we talk about pacing sometime. I think an obvious thing is because this is very well paced.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I know now you've seen Balance of Terror several times, obviously, but why do you think, coming to it as a new Star Trek fan, someone who hasn't even finished season 3 yet, why do you think it endures?
One thing that's come to mind, and I said it at the time, but I could flesh out the thought a little more, this is like real world events. It's right now it's March of 2026. In the last couple of months, the United States has done some things internationally, and there's a lot of back and forth going on, not to talk too much about current events, but the example I gave at the time was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes.
To sum it up quickly, in the late summer of, I believe it was 62 and not 63, but they got word that the Russians might be assembling missile bases in Cuba. And I think in early September, that was confirmed. They had some footage. So then the next 6 weeks or so was just kind of this back and forth trying to avoid nuclear war of massive proportions. And the United States at one point did like a naval blockade. That was their temporary solution. Then ultimately nuclear war was at stake. And that was early in the Cold War. This continued the battle with Russia until the wall came down in the late 80s. So that kind of story of international conflict is applicable in the last 50 years. And let's go back in history. I'm sure that same story, the story we're seeing here, is applicable in many form, even in more ancient times, I would say.
There were a couple comments that mentioned, and we'll read some of your comments that you guys left specifically for this discussion shortly. And it was something I had in my notes as well, that about the neutral zone sort of being, I'm going to that part of my notes, sort of being analogous to the Iron Curtain.
Absolutely.
Kind of serving as a metaphor for the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, which would have been pretty fresh, if I'm not mistaken, in the audience's mind at the time in 1966. Also, the Balance of Terror title itself, it's something that's, in my opinion at least, and I did read a couple other comments that thought the same, that it's a bit of a reference to the doctrine of mutually assured destruction that was also going on, where basically, if Russia and the U.S. got into a nuclear situation, well, you're looking at mutually assured destruction, basically.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where the title, from what I understand, I either came from, or maybe post, it's kind of been taken to be an analogy for that.
In the first 20 minutes, or in Act 1, almost into the end of Act 2, they talk about it being an enemy they can't identify. In the first half of this, I'm like, what a great job of presenting an ominous situation. I said at the time there were a lot of great close-ups early on in this episode, the lighting and whatnot, but especially in Act 1, it was so well established, the threat of the unknown. And they even said, we don't know what we're looking for here.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen the Romulans since the prior conflict. Was it 100 years ago or a century?
Yes.
Which, so yeah, physically, they have no idea. They don't know what the ship would look like. So just, what a great premise.
And very importantly, for the plot later, they establish early on that during that first conflict, that neither side ever saw each other.
Yeah.
So neither side knows what the other looks like.
Nor was there even ship-to-ship visual communication. Therefore, no human, Romulan, or ally has ever seen the other.
Or really what they think of each other. Spock, when he does his sort of, he's doing like an announcement to the crew about the situation, explaining the neutral zone, blah, blah, blah. And Spock mentions, we believe the Romulans are vicious, warmongers, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, and only the Romulans know what they think of us because there's so little information.
And it's just it's somewhere later in my notes, but at one point, Spock agrees with something. I think it's when they're having that conference, and he talks of the Vulcans once having a very primitive, disorderly period when they were aggressors.
Vulcan, like Earth, had its aggressive, colonizing period. Savage, even by Earth standards. And if the Romulans retain this martial philosophy, then weakness is something we dare not show.
I say later, I know in our season 1 discussion, I wanted to know more about Vulcan history, but this is probably an early look because, into the nature of Vulcans and their origins and what they are. So for me, something I enjoyed, it was character development for Spock to hear this or something.
Yeah, in that scene, they're kind of deciding if they're what they should do.
That's a great scene, too.
Yeah. Should they fight? Should they whatever? And Spock is the one that says, I agree, we should fight.
Yes.
And everyone's kind of like, really? You, Spock? And yeah, and then he goes into
That's the explanation.
How the Vulcans were all emotional. And we see that kind of followed up on a little bit in season 2, A Mock Time, where we see Spock going through the Pon farr, and he loses that self-discipline to suppress emotion, and he becomes illogical, and we see how violent early Vulcans could be.
And this is actually great to do. It's just coming to me, but like that we're doing this. We first watched this episode, 2.5, 3 months later? But now we can rewatch it with those elements of season 2 that we're on season 3 right now in our filming. I think what are we airing?
We filmed
right
the first 4 episodes of season 3, and we just released The Apple yesterday.
But having watched season 2, and we know what's to come, even with this actor, so to speak.
Mark Leonard.
But yeah, it's fun to discuss this in this time.
Just to kind of follow up on your point, one of the things that's fun as a Star Trek fan, and why I think so many of us that are longtime fans revisit these episodes, is because of what you just said. Once you have even more context of having watched these characters later on, and you watch these episodes, they to use modern day vernacular, they hit different.
Absolutely.
There's little things you can appreciate more, and you can say, oh, they laid a little seed here. Maybe it wasn't the plan at the time, but they followed up on this later.
And I've said this multiple times, how smart the writing is, that these seeds, and again, we don't know if they're intentional or if it's, we do know like DC Fontana is a very big Spock writer, right? And whatnot. Yeah. And that's something, in hindsight, to pick up those nuances. I always use the comparison, I say it often about art, though. It's like, some people visit, the famous museums in Europe, and, they go to Spain every year and look at some of the architecture and whatnot, and you're probably noticing details that you didn't notice the first 5 or 6 visits, just because it's so vast and magnificent. I've been to Spain a few times, so the Sagrada, if I'm saying it right, Basilico, it's this huge church that actually it's going to be finished this year, but it's taken 120 years of construction to fully put this up.
Sounds like some of the road work here in Florida. I did bring some just production background information.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Not a lot. I don't know if this will inspire a lot of conversation, but it's stuff that in hindsight, I didn't tell you, I watched our reaction and discussion from our first one, and I was like, I kind of wish I would have brought up some of this production stuff to that conversation.
Okay.
So we've touched on this a little bit, how it's inspired, obviously, by submarine movies, and apparently specifically the writer Paul Schneider and director Vincent McEveety, I'm sure I did not pronounce that, they modeled the episode after the World War II naval film, several of them, but specifically The Enemy Below and Run Silent, Run Deep, released in 57 and 58, respectively. You can see that Schneider, the writer, deliberately drew from the Roman Empire for the culture of the Romulans. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Yeah. They have Centurion. The Praetor is like the head of the Romulan Empire, so we find out a little bit about that. A lot of the Romulans here, the majority of them, they're wearing helmets.
Yes.
And that's because it was...
They're also doing the salute, too, I remember, a few times when they're giving orders.
Which... kind of going back to what you were saying about watching this after watching more of TOS, it's a little similar to the salute that in Mirror Mirror, the evil human empire gives.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it's a nice little note to me.
I mean, you can't give we say this too, like sometimes every 4 episodes we're having a different Earth-like planet or something, but it's fun. Like not every culture will have a salute of some kind, but certain episodes, and it's funny, Mirror Mirror, another very popular episode too, that it really helps to establish. And just to go back a second to the character development, those Romulans, the Centurion, and I forget the second in command's name.
The guy with the white hair, the friend of the Romulan commander.
But also the fact that we didn't see these people for Act 1 in the first 15 minutes. So taking 50 minutes, you're down to 35. We both really just said right before we started this, what a great job with a pretty big cast. And that's also what Styles getting a lot of time. They really fleshed out all these new characters in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
We know who they are. We know what's at stake. I mean, we see the back and forth between the Romulan commander and his second in command and, trying to figure out the best way to proceed. Very similar to what's going on in the Enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many nice moments. And just to say, because it's a good time to say it, I mean, there's a lot of moments of silence. There's a lot of extreme close-ups, like the reveal that the commander looks like Spock. They do close-ups on almost all of them. And just, everyone gets such nice moments.
Since you've already brought up the characters,
okay,
we should talk about. I did want to mention the reason why they were wearing helmets, the majority of them, is because it was just expensive to put Vulcan ears on everybody.
Oh, to cover it up.
So to save money and time, they put most of them in helmets. But yeah, why don't we go over the characters?
Absolutely.
You've already talked a little bit about the Praetor and his second in command. To finish up the Romulan characters, there's the other guy who I guess is like third in command, who ends up getting demoted.
Yeah.
That gentleman, by the way, played Ston in Amok Time. Ston was the guy that T'Pring chooses over Spock.
Okay.
So just a fun little note. I believe that's him.
And another little, and I think this is another reason for me this episode really hits, and maybe for a lot of you, that just makes it feel complete. The moment at the end when the Romulan commander says to the Centurion when they're going to use his body as debris. Like, I wish I didn't have to do this.
All debris into disposal tubes.
Yes, Commander.
The body of the Centurion, too.
But you see he has heartache of taking this wise Centurion and having to use him as bait, essentially.
And it's his friend.
Yes. And it's like one line. But to me, that just fleshes out an episode like this. So great storytelling.
Yeah, a great.
It fleshes out who the Romulan commander is, which we already know. He says, he's like, well, that's what I would do, or this man is very smart, referring to Kirk. And they both kind of say that. I feel like going back and forth. But that was a moment of the Romulan commander's relationship with the Centurion and what he's about. Yeah. It just very quickly establishes that, like, he does have a heart. Like, he's not like evil for the sake of evil, which sometimes we get in these episodes. Yeah,
and they established pretty early on, too, that the Romulan commander...
He's better than Vol.
Yes.
We just posted that episode, so that's why it's fresh in our mind.
The apple.
But I didn't mean to cut you.
You're good. So, I mean, I agree 100% with everything you're saying, but another thing that they established early on is that the Romulan commander is war-weary. He's not looking to start a war. If he can avoid it, he will. And it's kind of similar to Kirk, because we've seen it even in season 1, we saw episodes where Kirk is just like kind of worn down from the pressure of command, similar to the Romulan commander.
Yes. And this episode has that very strong scene, and it's an extended scene when he's just lying there in darkness, 9 hours. I rewatched this just to freshen up on all these small points that I think really flesh out the episode, but how he's just in complete darkness, contemplating lying. Rand comes in, which again, we haven't talked about this. Another storyline, which I think this is Rand's last appearance, right?
Dude, I don't remember.
I think you said it when we were watching it, because
I never told
that moment when
the comments gave it away.
When Rand comes up behind him and kind of like hugs him almost in a tender moment at the end, it's just, I mean, that's another storyline that this episode doesn't spend a lot of time on that, but those few quick scenes Rand has, it's like, oh, like there's something there. Like, not even counting the wedding, which in their quick moment to go back, they had a cute moment at the beginning of the episode when he flirts with her and he's like, well, I guess we'll get married later. Like, I'm still your superior right now. Now get to work. And it's like, but it's a cute moment. And it's like, okay, that's like a moment of young love, flirtatious, and like not knowing that.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the Tomlinson and Angela in just a moment. But yeah, just to finish up, kind of on Kirk and the Romulan commander, I really love the exchange when they finally talk at the end, or the final exchange where the Romulan commander tells Kirk,
In a different reality, I could have called you friend.
Oh yeah.
and how throughout the episode, as they're battling each other and they're seeing this guy's smart, this guy's doing the same things I would do, they come to respect each other.
Yeah.
You know,
While also dealing with possibly causing a war of mass destruction, of it being exposed that one or the other cross paths back to their home bases. Just so much going on. And you see the wariness, even these shots in the background of the Romulan commander here. I mean, he, like the guy's patting him on the shoulder, like
the Centurion
almost to keep his spirits up in this. I'm not sure where we're at, but I mean, you can see how pensive he is. And
Yeah, Mark Leonard did an incredible job. I'm really glad they brought him back for Spock's father. So yeah, the wedding party with Angela and Tomlinson. You actually asked me something that I had never thought of when I got here today. You say, why is Scotty giving Angela away? And then I thought about it. I'm like, well,
there's also only like 10 people at the wedding.
Yeah, well,
I guess everybody else has to work.
Yeah, maybe Angela and Tomlinson are actually jerks, and most people don't like them. We don't know anything about these people.
Well, Tomlinson looked like a very good-looking man.
Maybe he broke a lot of hearts.
Yeah. Is there any fan fiction on Tomlinson's backstory?
He left his own wake of destruction. But yeah, and then we started kind of talking about it. It's like, oh well, she's working later down. It's either engineering or in the phaser control room.
Phaser control acknowledging. All weapons energizing to full.
It's something that we know like Scotty has a lot to do with. Yeah. So it's like, oh, it makes sense that Scotty has some kind of relationship,
parental figure,
her, yeah.
Probably maybe the closest boss. And again, even early on, to go back, when Kirk is on the loudspeaker, like in the first 5 minutes, all the shots of the various decks that we often don't see. Like I said, there were a lot, even if they were non-speaking, they probably wouldn't pay the same. But really establishing the world of the Enterprise, which for me, seeing this for the first time, sometimes they were just on the bridge, so it was cool, I thought.
Yeah, it really fleshes out the Enterprise as a place.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Spock and Styles. I know we already talked about it a little bit, but yeah, Styles from the very beginning is already assuming that it's the Romulans. We got to go after them. He says it's family. A lot of people in his family have been killed in the original war. Kirk has that great line that he says to him.
Their war, Mr. Styles. Not yours.
And my note right here says Styles has great eye intensity challenging Kirk. I actually think he didn't blink, which, like an actor's note, and I think it's Anthony Hopkins said this, the constant blinking, it could have a moment to tell the story, but to really, the eyes are always what tells the story. And I think it's that early scene when he's kind of challenging Kirk.
Yeah.
When he just said that line, it's not our war, it was theirs or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm like, his eye intensity, you could see the fire burn within Styles, I thought, which immediately, that might be like the first main scene kind of with them.
Kind of. And I will
But it establishes that this is personal to him.
Yes.
Yes.
And to Kirk's credit, later on, after the Romulans, reveal, right, we see them, Styles, again, it seems like he's challenging Kirk, and Kirk even takes it as a challenge. He says to him that, like, with all due respect, blah, blah, blah. And Kirk's like, oh, are you questioning me? He says, no, I'm saying that we may have a Romulan spy on board. Yeah. And then Sulu says, I concur.
I heard that, which was great.
We should stay at security level. I can't remember what they said. But Kirk goes, okay, you know what? You're right. Okay, we'll go with your suggestions, Styles.
A great all this also very subtly explaining that this is a situation Kirk is more so than ever, I feel like, open to suggestions.
Even during the conference room scenes, Kirk tells Styles, even though Styles has been a bit of a prick, he tells him, hey, I want your input.
Go ahead, Mr. Styles. I call this session for opinions.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you
like. Here I wrote that, because I kind of went in order of this, Kirk, he's not making any rash decisions, but contemplating all options.
Yes.
Which also another just historical reference, leaders do this often. Abraham Lincoln, and it was called the team of rivals. In his cabinet positions, he put, enemies or people that challenged him along the way just to get the best and the brightest and variety of opinions.
Yeah. Basically, Lincoln was like one of those TLC reality shows where they get people that don't like each other. I'm just kidding. Sure. And to finish up the wrap up with Styles and Spock, later at the end of the episode, Spock saves Styles. He pulls him out of the, I think it was the phaser control room or something like that, where there was like that poisonous gas that had started leaking.
Yeah, and Spock gives the explanation. He said, I merely saved somebody very capable at doing his job. I'm not capable of any other thing. And I'm like, especially now having watched season 2, this could be an early glimpse into Spock maybe being a friend. What's the word? Or
he's like trying to.
He's not malicious. I mean,
No.
he's not. The guy's been insulting him the whole time, but at the same time, even if most of the reason, Spock's going to do the right thing and save a life if he can.
Yeah. And not only that, but I think it's Spock also right there, because Spock is the second in command of the ship, right? He's the first officer. So it's him being a good commander. He sees that Styles feels bad about the way he treated Spock, and sees that Spock still saved him, even though he treated him like crap. And then it's like Spock saying, hey, it's okay. You don't have to feel so bad about it.
Let's let bygones be bygones.
It's a good commander.
It was great. It was a great moment. And the fact, it was kind of underplayed almost.
He risked his life, and after
I saved a trained navigator so that he could return to duty. I'm capable of no other feelings in such matters.
When he didn't go out and say, hey, I'm so sorry for what I said earlier. They didn't need to say that. If anything, with an episode that had so much going on, that would have been wasted space if Styles pulled him aside and was like, I was wrong about you, or whatever. I apologize. Yeah. That little moment when he's recovering told that story so well.
You mentioned earlier too that they do a great job of establishing all of these guest actors. There's a moment, I believe it's the moment you mentioned with Tomlinson and Angela kind of giving each other a hard time playfully, like in a flirting way.
Well, it was earlier on. I think it was right after he made the announcement to everyone.
Yeah, when he's like, "Oh, you're still report to me," or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. But it was cute, and again, not totally throwing away the initial storyline, and there's no follow up on it or something. If anything, I was going to say, because we often talk about openings, this opening's it's quick.
Yeah,
the alarm goes off, and those great close ups. And Scotty, actually, I said this. Scotty, before Kirk even is it the announcement to Spock, because he's talking with Spock in the intercom. I
think so.
But Scotty already runs by him.
Kirk here.
Earth Outpost 4 reports they're under attack. Space vessel, identity unknown.
Full ahead. All decks, condition red.
And then we said, again, another example. We love these examples of Scotty being so good at his job. In that opening scene, they say we're at maximum speed, and Kirk's about to tell Scotty that, and Scotty's like, already working on it.
I'm already working on getting more.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Which at this time, I don't even think we had heard Warp 9 at this point. I think it's later, right? Like in season 2, we hear Warp 9 at some point.
I think so. I don't remember. I mean, they play so fast and loose with the warp numbers. They hadn't really established it early on. So I just kind of don't really pay attention to it too much.
But somebody watching this will correct you.
Well, once we get to TNG, that stuff is more set in stone. Where you can be like, oh, they're at this warp. Oh, I know that's bad, because they're more consistent about it. Tomlinson dies, tragically. And that scene at the end where Angela is at the chapel, for all intents and purposes, Kirk goes there to, I would assume, console her, right? And, he's the captain. He needs to do that. But she ends up kind of consoling him and says, yeah, I'm all right. And Kirk looks almost like he's about to break down. And then, as Kirk leaves, the last shot of the episode, if I remember correctly, is Kirk walking out of there and walking down the hallway. And you kind of see him kind of getting his confidence back.
Yeah, Kirk has a lot of moments. Even in that scene with Bones and Rand earlier, this is a very vulnerable Kirk. I think at this point in this season, occasionally we've seen moments of him being overworked, between not exactly knowing how to do, needing everybody's opinions. I think in the scene with Bones and Rand, he goes, but what if I'm wrong or something? And then Bones says something about needing a James Kirk.
But Bones gives this great speech to Kirk about how there's, billions of galaxies and planets, and all of those, blah, blah, blah. There's only one Kirk. He basically finishes it with,
Don't destroy the one named Kirk.
kind of basically telling him, hey, don't let this eat you up so much that you're not making the decisions you would.
Yes.
It's a great pep talk without it being like, you can do this,
I actually said Bones does not have a lot of dialogue in this episode. And it's so funny because we love Bones' sarcasm, especially. He has so few lines in this, Bones, but what he says or his looks are so impactful.
Yeah.
And even early on when Kirk says, I hope we're not going to all need you in the sick bay soon, Bones, or something. It's just, you know what I mean? The joking's gone because this situation needs to be dealt. So almost everything we see with Bones, he's in the conference room, he's in that later scene. It's just great. He's utilized perfectly. This was an episode that didn't need a bunch of sarcasm or a whimsical ending or some of the stuff that some of these episodes seem to have a lot of.
And sorry to bounce around, guys, but you had mentioned that the cold open starts off really hot and all this stuff, and it does. But how amazing is that we go from this beautiful, lovely wedding that's happening in the beginning into boom, outposts have been destroyed. We might be at the brink of war, all within the cold open, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and it all works because sometimes those tonal shifts can be, when they're drastic like that, it can be tough for any show to pull off, but they pulled it off really well.
Seamlessly. The only other thing, which we probably said this in the initial reaction, but the production here, even when they're in all darkness, the stillness with no power is great. The Romulan ship, all the shades of purple in the lighting. Even I said the later scene more than once when there's a lot of dust and debris falling on the Romulans.
Yeah.
But it all looks good. There's actually, I think one of the early things when the Enterprise is hit early on, everybody sells it really well.
Yeah.
Like everybody's all over the place, but it looks great.
Yeah, the directing is really incredible in this episode. A lot of the camera movements feel like modern camera movements, you know. And you know what?
I think on the Romulan ship, there was actually like the camera would shake a little bit at times to add to either, I forget if it was when they were being hit or just the chaos of the moment.
Yeah.
Either way, it worked.
All right, we'll go over some comments. Some of these are a little bit on the longer side, and we normally wouldn't read them if we were doing like an episode reaction. But since this is a discussion, we'll read one of these. This one is from someone who I don't recognize them commenting before, so this is your first time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marshall Henderson, 1906 said, let me get a deep breath for this one. I met Mark Leonard at a NASA event in Houston many years ago. He was kind enough to sign the back of my VHS copy of Journey to Babel, which Nimoy had also signed on another occasion. He was delighted to be signing his name near Nimoy's and chuckled as he signed it above Leonard's name. I've always been impressed that Mark was a serious actor who took the trouble to get his master's degree in theater and then went on to become a very serious stage actor in New York, performing solid roles in classic literary stage pieces, including Shakespeare. All of that training and experience gave him a tremendous gravitas on camera that really benefited Trek from the original series to the movies. Leonard's work here arguably contributed massively to Star Trek's moral universe. The idea that the enemy commander is not a monster, but a person caught in the same political machinery of conflict as our heroes was groundbreaking. The episode is a reflection of the Cold War set in space. Many people believe it's a retelling of the World War II submarine film, The Enemy Below. The Romulan bird of prey is basically a U-boat. It has a cloaking device, and then he put in parentheses the submerged submarine. Limited fuel and resources, and a commander who would rather not be fighting at all. The Enterprise is a destroyer on the surface, hunting by sensor contact rather than sonar. But the true awesomeness of the episode is how it layers Cold War nuclear anxiety on top of a World War II framework. The neutral zone is clearly the iron curtain, a barrier maintained by mutual distrust, where even a minor incursion could trigger total annihilation. Almost done here. The destruction of the outposts along the zone evokes the constant fear of a first strike, and Kirk's decision about whether to pursue or withdraw mirrors the real strategic calculus of escalation and deterrence that defied the 1960s. Throw in the Romulans as an enduring alien race, the Styles bigotry subplot, and the death of a young crew member who was in the middle of getting married, and this episode was a real banger that managed to tackle everything it attempted to. Top tier Trek.
That is so well said. And even
maybe you should be hosting this.
Thanks. And I bet a lot of people didn't know some of the earlier information about his background. And I mean, this kind of extended discussion, it's great to hear this. That's why we're doing these, because that's an awesome comment.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he seems to agree that this episode just perfectly balanced.
Yeah.
A lot going on, but it didn't feel overwhelming. Like, there's been an episode or two where I'm just like, wait, what just happened? Or like, even the science of it, actually, this is a good place to interject. We haven't said this. The science of when they're invisible, but when something happens, they'll see them briefly and stuff like that. And the how the Romulan ship kept, he picked up, he's like, oh no, they know we're using a lot of power and stuff like that. That's a lot of the technical sci-fi, I guess, kind of technical stuff. But again, and we haven't said that yet, easy to understand in this episode, fits in perfectly, not overcomplicated. You're trying to think, well, wait, what's happening? And, at least for me, sometimes when it's like information overload, that happens sometimes.
No, that's a great comment to make, because you coming to this as somebody who is new to the world of Star Trek, you don't really watch sci-fi, so it's not that you're dumb or anything, but like it's if you're not used to hearing this it's like watching Shakespeare. or listening to Shakespeare for the first time.
It's a jargon.
The dialogue
And, yeah.
has its own kind of dialect and jargon, like you said. So yeah, they managed to make it very easy to follow and understand in this one. Where other times, I mean, even sometimes I'm like, okay, sure.
There's actually one movie, and this made me think of it. I don't know if what we just said makes anybody else think of this. Did you ever see the movie The Big Short about the stock market crash in '08?
Oh man, but so long ago.
Okay,
Yes.
and I don't remember that well, but there's so much technical jargon. But they do these awesome cutaways with Brad Pitt and some of the other characters where they kind of dumb it down and they explain. Do you remember that? They do a lot of them, and I'm like, it's like a 2-minute recap. Well, what just happened here was like, I don't know if they do it to camera, but I remember seeing that movie, and it's a long movie talking about a lot of just financial stuff that the layman might not know.
Yeah.
That movie, I thought, handled it perfectly the way it did. So
Yeah, there was another movie like that about, I'm just uploading the comment screenshot, that kind of did the same thing a little bit. Boiler Room with Vin Diesel, of all people. But he was actually very good at that movie.
Mark Leonard, Shakespeare, Brad Pitt, Vin Diesel.
All right, let me go to the next comment here. This next one comes from Trekkie 74205. Balance of Terror may be as close to a perfect Star Trek episode. The introduction of a core Star Trek race, an opponent the equal of Kirk, action, drama, and a lesson about bigotry. I watched Star Trek for the first time around 10 years old. It definitely influenced my openness to other cultures and people different than myself.
Absolute great comment. And we didn't say this initially. Earlier, when you asked me another reason that this episode might endure in the lore is that it's the first appearance of the Romulans. And we not only see them again in
The Enterprise Incident,
but also aren't they referred to like offhand about stuff going on in the universe? And I can't remember which episode, but I feel like there's a couple times where they either mention the potential of a Romulan conflict or they're doing something in the distance, like somewhere where they're...
I think you're right, because they mentioned them and the Klingons, right? They're trying to figure out who did something, and somebody says...
I feel like they mentioned both of them. Yeah. Which, again, important for that reason.
This next comment comes from Green Brown 7776. Balance of Terror is not only one of the best Star Trek episodes ever made across the entire franchise, but it's also one of the most important ever made. Yeah, nice and simple.
Oh, yeah.
This one comes from JG Laster. This has been one of my favorite episodes since the 1960s. Some of the dialogue is pulled almost directly from the 1957 film The Enemy Below, about a U.S. surface ship versus a German submarine in World War II, when they are discovered because of their stubborn habit of returning to the same base course. So he's saying that in that movie, a German captain says of the opponent, he is the devil, and then I guess the name of somebody. Then in Balance of Terror, the Romulan commander says he is a sorcerer, that one, talking about Kirk. So that is similar dialogue.
It is, absolutely.
One main difference is that the U-boat crew abandons before scuttling their vessel. This last comment comes from Comrade Wireless Caller 6716. Wow, what a great episode. It takes something that could be cliched, two spaceships going bang bang at each other for 50 minutes with little other development, and yet makes it gripping. The minimalist approach pays off thanks to great writing and great acting. We get into some neat world building with the discussion of the neutral zone, the Romulans, and the asteroid outpost. It was also the Trek franchise's first, and I would say largely successful attempt at tackling the issue of racism. While it's kind of cool to realize that as a ship's captain, Kirk can officiate weddings, I knew one of them was going to die as soon as we had the we're still going to get married scene later on. I guess this subplot is to remind us of the tragedy of war, but people die in a lot of Star Trek episodes. I think maybe they should have focused on a different tragedy, that of Spock. He isn't dead, but he is distanced from the others despite his character and actions because of his pointy ears. That's actually a good point. They could have done a little side story about Spock feeling alone.
Yeah.
People, there is a scene like when they reveal the Romulan commander, people on the bridge do look at Spock weird. Even Kirk looks
Absolutely.
at him.
And actually, this comment gave me two thoughts. Thank you for leaving it. It's
Yeah,
a great
there's
one.
a little more, but yeah, let's talk about this point.
But just to say real quick, it's funny because we see, remember later on, 5, 6 later in this side of Paradise, when we see Spock saying the great line, like, I was happy for the first time or something. This just kind of, for world building purposes, he's dealt with abuse like that. He's dealing with it on his own ship, this kind of abuse. And probably there have been other times in his history he has. So,
Yeah.
And also just to say about Angela, she also, like at the end, when she says, I'm going to be all right, or whatever it is verbatim, you know, there's casualties in war, even if it happens to be your loved one. So that made her, I thought, a very compelling character in a short amount of time again.
Yeah. I'm going to read just a little bit more of your comment. You left it's a very good comment, but it's very long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just a couple other parts. Oh, and when Kirk went to comfort the grieving Angela after his behavior in the last few episodes, I was terrified that he was going to hit on her. I just thought that was kind of funny. Speaking of Kirk, the scene where he speaks to McCoy about the weight of command is great. He isn't some perfect machine. He actually looks old for a moment. The suave ladies' man gone.
He does. In that scene, his eyes, I mean, he looks like he's going to cry during that whole scene.
Yeah.
And I don't know this. I don't know if it's just more than one great performance from William Shatner. I do wonder whether it's working with Mark Leonard also, that they were, I'm sure they saw each other film some of these scenes, if they wanted to keep this episode as grounded as possible. Yeah. I mean, Kirk's, sometimes when he's talking, he has a bit of that, the cadence. There's very little of that in this episode, which I just like. I think it sells how serious it is.
Shatner makes pretty good choices, I would say 99% of the time.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, some people give him gruff for his acting style, but I mean, more often than not, it fits the moment.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I mean, even in this episode, he's just looking up at Spock. I mean, and look how tired he looks.
Yeah.
And again, it's subtle, but I feel tired watching it.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a combination of the lighting, probably a little makeup, and just the way right now in this particular scene, he's like rubbing his face. This is at about 42 minutes in.
And just quick note I want to say, and this is both in Act 3 or 4, when Kirk goes, on my responsibility, we're going to the neutral zone. The Romulan commander has a very similar moment. I think he's like on his knees or something, and the other person says like, well, I could fire on them. And then the Romulan commander stands up and he says, very similar, it's on my orders we're doing this.
We will attack, but on my order.
Which again, just great moment of showing the similarities between these two men and how the weight of this command on both of them has been so overwhelming.
Yes. I mean, it's a great episode. It kind of sets, even though this is like the 14th episode, I believe, and other episodes had set the standard that this is a bit of a thinking man's science fiction show. I think this really cements it. This isn't just your typical science fiction show meant for kids or just purely for entertainment. This is going to leave you thinking.
Absolutely. And there's obviously a lot to break down. We've talked for 50 minutes here. And again, more comments, more thoughts. We hope you enjoy these extended episodes to read some of these longer comments or just elaborate further. And again, I think it is interesting watching these couple months, later with more perspective, like for me especially, on what happens in season 2, the beginning of season 3, and where some of this goes, these characters. So again, hope you enjoyed this. We want to hear your comments as always. Thank you for supporting us.